Hey everybody, my name is Tiger Morgan. I'm Chief of Staff for the Every Cooperative, and I could not be more excited to be hosting this panel right now. We're talking about kind of go-to-market strategies for blockchain projects. And as you guys saw in the last thing, a big consideration is, well, how do we get to this humanized level and how do we make people interact with it? And I'm not a developer and I can't write smart contracts, but I can sure interact with this stuff the same as everybody else can. I know that there's a huge gap in the market for getting us there. So I think we're going to have an awesome panel here talking about it from great different perspectives. We've got someone who's launched an amazing go-to-market plan for a very successful company. We've got someone building out their go-to-market plan right now. We've got two different kinds of consultants here to talk about it. So why don't you guys go ahead and just introduce yourselves and run down the line.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Dom, like I said earlier, Director of Engagement for CoinMe, as well as an advisor here for Token Forum. CoinMe, we are a crypto financial services company. We are actually, let's see, we're on the 76, so we are 45 floors down from here. My desk is almost directly below us, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, so we started in 2014 with Bitcoin ATMs. We're actually the first licensed Bitcoin ATM operator in the United States. We launched our token, which is called UpToken, in October of last year. Raised just shy of $19 million with that. And then we've been, just rolling out more ATMs and then upgrading our services, including a suite of private advisors and OTC trading as well. So.
Hi, I'm Paul Gamble. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Nori, and our mission as a company is to reverse climate change. And the way that we're going about that is we're building a market that makes it very easy for people to pay for removing CO2 from the atmosphere and storing it in the ground. We are actively building this right now. We're hoping to be able to launch our market in early of next year. We are a team of 10 people. We're based out of Ballard. And we are also actively right now fundraising through selling tokens to both accredited investors and to the public. So I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go through this.
My name's Amy Carr. I'm the CEO and founder of Galileo. We've been spending the last 2 years focused on all the non-technical pieces in the industry. So how to build brand, product, messaging, mission, vision, everything that comes along with scaling your company. And we also just started a fund that's focused on bringing Web3 to Africa. So really focused on how to build the best products and really scale the industry in a way that people understand it.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Name is Justin, glad to be here again. I'm the founder of CoinState. What we do at CoinState is we are a community and media brand, and so we do all things growth. So we host a lot of specialized events around the world. Just yesterday, we hosted a full blockchain event at the NASDAQ. And then also to our Art Basel, we're always looking at other experiences in more specialized areas like healthcare, stablecoins, etc. Then also too, I've been involved, and our group has been involved with about 15 token projects, DApps, and then now STOs today on the marketing growth side, from pre-sale, sale, and then post-sale support as well too. So happy to share insights.
Awesome. Great panel we have here. You guys are going to be terrific. So kind of where I wanted to start things off with all of you is in developing our project over the last little north of a year now, we have learned 1,000 different lessons in go-to-market strategies and mistakes that we've made and things we think the market needs and it doesn't, and things the market need that we don't think it does. So what do you guys think are the biggest mistakes that companies make when they're crafting out their go-to-market plan? What are kind of the biggest pitfalls that these blockchain companies are experiencing? And let's start with Justin and then just kind of work down this way.
Okay, yeah, it really depends on what phase they are. I mean, the market's been shifting. Obviously, with ICOs maybe a year ago, they were just doing some very big marketing from ad spends, influencers, events, media, and now since everything's shifted to more like STOs or selling things as securities, it's been more like big PR, roadshows, and private investors. That's on the fundraising side. And then if you go into more like the DApps and like the NFT collectible games, they have to go out and both attract individuals and attention, and then they have to go out and also then make sure that they also understand crypto. So it's been I think the biggest mistake from each of the phases is that I think that most of the people when they're building their projects, they don't have a cohesive game plan even post ICO, and I've seen it so many times. They are. You've seen it. Everybody wants to just focus on building, and I think the biggest error I'd say is like communication. You'll see the Twitter accounts, Telegram accounts, Facebook, email newsletters, blogs just completely die. They're like, oh, thank you for your $30 million, even to the private investors, and then they just dip out and disappear. And I've seen it to so many different projects all across the world, and it's frustrating. And whereas you see the potentially like the top 40, 50, top 10 coins, those projects are consistently building up. I mean, Tron gives updates all day long, so at least they're there and they have a more positive feeling versus the founders and founding team going MIA. And so I think that, to me, that's like the biggest thing. It's not about the channel, it's about the communication and constant develop, even if you are building on that side.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's looking at one of the biggest mistakes I think I see is people looking at their company or their project as a fundraising mechanism and not as a company. And it's not, a fundraise is something you're doing, not who you are. And so it's just the first step, and not thinking about the game plan, not thinking about the fact that those people that bought your tokens are the ones who are going to help you through all the waves that are to come. And you've got to communicate with them. You have to build that brand and that mission and that message that's going to get people through, and also help elevate and keep your coin price more stable in a volatile market. So I think, yeah, it's really people not thinking around their project as a company and just thinking about it as a way to get a lot of money really quick. And that ultimately ends in people being wildly disappointed, a project not working out, people thinking you're a scam, and you might be. And like, there's a large chance, if you're looking at it that way, to take a step back and be like, am I building this because I believe in the ethos of the technology that I'm aiming toward, or am I building it because it's a quick way to raise money, and going to Silicon Valley is difficult, and you can't raise $30 million.
A thing I'd like to touch on that just really quick is I think a lot of people conflagrate a go-to-market strategy with a sell your token strategy, right?
Yes.
What % of projects in the blockchain space do you think actually merit having a token for what they're trying to do?
Not as many as there are right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, or another thing too is what she just said is, when you're on the fundraising phase, you're just trying to cram the Telegram accounts, you're just trying to get listed on exchanges, you're just trying to get big whales and investors. And the reality that we're seeing with the utility tokens is those are not users of, they're not all like Cannabis Coin or Spank Chain, they're not using webcam, all that stuff. So they're not all users, they're all speculators. And so that's like a big two different audiences that you spent all your money in cash to try to fundraise, then you're trying to get into utility. They don't have a strategy for that as well. So
I think that's an interesting point to build on, which is that by taking that approach, token projects are highly susceptible to price volatility of their token, which is going to be a hindrance if they're trying to get user adoption and expecting some sort of stability around how they build out their platform. That's something that we've been, from like day one, trying to take into account at Nori, is how do we design both the token distribution mechanism as well as just the way that people use the token within our app to ensure that the token isn't just fluctuating wildly based on the whims of some random crypto markets, but is actually based on some sort of real market demand.
Yeah, and I think it's important here also to sort of delineate the difference between a marketing strategy and a go-to-market strategy, right? So a lot of times, and I fell into this a couple of companies ago. It's like, all right, so our marketing strategy, what are the channels we're going to hit? How are we going to do this? What are the videos we're going to put out? Things like that. But a proper go-to-market strategy, and something that we learned at CoinMe, is it has to be holistic across your entire organization, right? If all it is marketing, and all you're trying to do is just focus on getting a bunch of people to, buy a token or something like that, right? That's all you're going to do, and you're not worried about, what the other hand is doing. But if you actually work together with your entire organization, with legal, with your engineers, with, everybody else that you have that are stakeholders at different parts in this, that's what makes an actual proper go-to-market strategy. Too often, I think, in this industry, the money was just coming out of everywhere for people that were saying, hey, I'm building a blockchain project, or hey, this thing is crypto, right? Everybody was doing that. And so there wasn't really good go-to-market strategies, and that's why everybody was left with a bad taste in their mouth, because all of these token projects are like, yeah, we're going to do it, but they didn't actually have a go-to-market strategy how they're going to get it. It's like, hey, we have an idea, and a bunch of people gave them some money. So actually working together with your organization to go, hey, here's these milestones that we're going to hit. What do we have to do for this? And all of the dependencies that are across the organization. It's really important to have that all buttoned up before you start talking to people about what you want to do, because they're going to ask those questions, and you need to have those answers, or else they're going to leave you and go find the next thing, and you're not going to get that second chance to make a first impression.
Absolutely. Great point. And it ties into something I was thinking of a little earlier, and I want to direct this to you, Justin, is I'm sure in your travels you've met, 1,000 ICO advisors, 2,000? I mean, how many ICO advisors would you say that you've met?
I think everybody is an advisor, right? So this is an interesting point. And I actually debated with one of the fellow previous token founder, forum speakers, Darren, on stage at another conferences. He was just saying advisors are BS. I think that they play a role, especially now, that they are technically kind of as a token founder, you're a free team member in a sense that you're not necessarily paying them, but you could pay advisors, because I definitely get paid. It just depends on, the thing about advisors though is they should there's so many different flavors of them. You want to get like a full shill, then you can get a full shill advisor. You can get somebody that's a industry but has no blockchain experience, but they can give you access into healthcare or wherever. So I think that when you're thinking about advisors, plural, you should think about how can these potential advisors accelerate you whatever way possible. Let's say you need somebody, you can't fundraise in Korea because you don't have a Korea person. Well, then you're going to bring on a Korean advisor. Then you're going to bring on a Japanese advisor. And at this current state where fundraising is more challenging, people are just stacking up advisors now. Because again, some of them are you just put a flat token amount from a pool, but then you put them to work. And if they don't get to work, then you just get rid of them. And that's been a good growth way to kind of scale your team, but also work with potential community leaders or experts to help get and move the needle of whatever growth it is that you need, whether it be pre-phase or post as well. So I'm a believer of advisors still. It's just you got to pick and choose however way you want to stack it up.
I think one of the big problems here is that people are, once again, they're thinking about go-to-market in terms of the fundraising strategy and not kind of what comes after it, right? Because all of a sudden you've got all this exposure in secondary markets, and you want to build something, but how do you survive that exposure, and how do you get to the point where not just the speculators are playing with what you've built, but actual people? So Amy, when you think through these things and when you're helping people kind of craft these go-to-market strategies, what's kind of your holistic approach on that, and how do you address that from trying to be a helpful partner?
Yeah, we start really at all stages. So we work with a lot of different stages of companies. If we're starting really early, we'll start with the concept of what they're building, and we'll say, who are you building it for? What's the problem you're solving? And go over that again and again and again to make sure that you're solving that who. Right now we're seeing so many unusable products or ideas or projects in market because no one asked who. And no one asked why, and no one really focused on the exact problem you're trying to solve for the person you're trying to solve it for. And we're running into a lot of issues with unscalable projects. And so that's one piece of, really making sure that what's being built is going to be useful, and then going through and identifying, okay, with this, what's your first audience? What's your core message? What's the message that's going to resonate with what stage you're at? And building a more long-term plan, because we think it's important to not think about the way your company is in market right now, but also how it's going to be in market in a year from now, how it's going to be in market in 5 years from now, to really think around that long-term vision of the way the technology is going to disrupt and impact whatever industry you're trying to shake up, and what product is going to be most usable by the consumer that's going to eventually use it. Because if no one's going to use it, then why build it?
That's such a great point. It's something that I see this industry in particular starting to shift towards, and that's, you know, not necessarily like shunning the technology, but like letting that take the back seat to what the use case actually is, right? And that's what is going to have people be invested in your project, you know, not invested necessarily, I mean, hopefully monetarily, but also just like inside with their hearts, right? They want to be a part of this because you're actually building something for them. It's the, you know, the start with the why, the Simon Sinek. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great, fantastic point.
One of the things that we encourage people to ask is, what problem are you solving? Because absolutely no one is walking home, sitting down on their couch and being like, oh, my day was so centralized. Like no one's saying that. That's not the problem we're solving. No one's upset that their day is centralized. No one's even upset that Facebook has their data. They're a little like discouraged by it, but they gave it to them willingly. And so right now we're in a phase of, yes, privacy is important, but that's not, people aren't going to leave Facebook and go to a bad UX product because it's secure and decentralized. And so there is a problem with the way we're looking at design and the way we're not prioritizing it, because people will use mediocre technology with incredible product way before they'll use incredible technology with mediocre product. And that is where we're going to run into issues. People are literally addicted to the products that they're using now, and we're not building in a way where we're trying to make people addicted to it. We're not going to have the same data. And so when we're building and looking, it's really important to start with, number one, what's your data plan? Because if you're open and you're not collecting data, how are you going to build a product for consumers? So really thinking about that right now. How are you going to start collecting data? What's your plan for that? And then how are you going to build? What are you building?
So these are such wonderful, awesome, amazing points and perspectives. And I really want to hear, Paul, your take on this, because, I mean, you're really in the weeds in going through this stuff and thinking about, what am I building? Who's it for? What am I building? Who's it for? And iterating. So just kind of give me your perspective on the landscape of what these people have illustrated out for you, and what's your take on all of this?
Yeah, I completely agree with, you mentioned Simon Sinek, Start With Why. That was actually one of the first inspirations for me with Nori. I mean, we started thinking about it that, look, there's a problem, climate change. It's just a simple arithmetic problem. There are too many greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So how do we pull those out? And then start figuring out, working backwards from there. So we're trying to, when we were coming up with this model, we were trying to figure out, all right, what are all the different ways for doing that? What's available in the market today? Why aren't these happening at a larger scale? Who is willing to pay for increasing these sorts of things? And that's something that we've been figuring out as we've been going at it. Like, I couldn't have told you that maybe 8 months ago. And we've been at this for almost a year and a half-ish. And what we're figuring out now is that we have a particular type of customer to go after who can help kickstart the market. And yes, we are thinking about like that long-term plan, 1 year down the road, 2 years, 5 years down the road. And that's a much bigger, but we have to get that traction right now first, and that provides social proof for others to jump in. So it is really like a baby step, phased approach to go about doing that.
You're in a good spot. I'm glad it's not just token sale and that's it. So
it's actually like the token part is actually the most difficult part. Gaining the customer traction is a much easier sell because you're providing real value to them. The token aspect of it almost sort of confuses the situation.
Now, I think it's time to open up the phone lines. Do we have time for just a couple questions, or how are we doing? 2 questions. Is there anybody in the audience who's got some questions about kind of these go-to-market strategies and some of the difficulties that these projects face or overcome? There we go. We got a couple. Let's start with Brock. Brock, what do you have for us?
So a question maybe more for Justin, but maybe also for Amy. So around how pay is done for so-called ICO advisors or token advisors. Under SEC rules, my understanding is that we have to be very careful with how they're comped or how they're incented, because if they're incented based on the amount they raise, that automatically triggers some rules where they have to be, I think, either have a Series 7 or something like that. So can you answer about how that's being structured right now in the marketplace, and if you want to go for a token sale, how you might look at it leveraging those without getting in trouble with SEC rules?
I actually don't do any advising, so we do it from an agency perspective because of those. My legal bills were insane, and I was like, actually, if we have an agency, let's do it that way.
Yeah, then also, I've never done anything in terms of performance, in terms of fundraising, anything. It's just like flat retainer for service on the services side, and then advisory for the advisory side as well. So it's not, I'd imagine if you're an advisor that's doing like a pure investor relations, it just depends on the jurisdiction and each of the, like, you know, whatever, how Japan treats fundraising, et cetera. So, but on my side, I don't do any of the fundraising directly, and I don't get compensated for I don't close any investors at all.
Right over here.
Yes, excellent panel. Thank you very much. More than a question, I think just want to emphasize or re-emphasize Amy's point, which I think she drove very well. That I mean, now we're just thinking about the technology, and we are like a hammer that everything looks like a nail. And then, oh, a problem, let's put blockchain there. Oh, a problem, let's put blockchain there. And let's, like, when we talk about confusing fundraising or marketing with go-to-market, is because we're not really thinking about what's the problem that I'm trying to solve, and then how do you solve it, and will blockchain fit into that? And at the end, the technology is not the difficult part. The business case and the actual financials of does this make sense, and am I going to be able to make money out of this, and is this going to be sustainable? That's the first step. The technology part, then it's easy.
That's a fantastic point. I think that one of the things that I've been saying over the course of the last couple of months is that, you know, a blockchain company it's still a company, right? You still have to solve problems for your users and do it in a way that's better than the way that those problems have been solved in the past. And so, you know, people will ask me, like, how do you get a job in a blockchain company? It's like, well, what do you do? Like what value do you provide to any other company in another sort of an industry? Like, just do that here. And like, blockchain companies are not just a bunch of engineers that are just sitting there just like, you know, staring at ones and zeros all day. It's right. It's like you're doing a whole lot more than that. And so having those, and there's a lot that it's exciting. It's an exciting place to be in because there's problems that blockchain companies are facing now that have solutions. There are design solutions out there. There are designers, people that do this UX and this UI that are working on that. You just need to find those people and plug them in.
All right, well, please, ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause for our great panel here. I hope you guys heard some interesting stuff, great viewpoints, and I'll turn it back over to our gracious host.